Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Marvel Animation's Marvel Zombies. All the Avengers are dead, and they're coming for us. Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast. My name is Nate, and this is our spoiler-free review for Marvel Zombies. An undead giant man-sized thanks to our friends at Disney Studios Canada and Marvel Studios Canada for letting us watch this season early for review. If you're joining us for the first time, we are Geekcentric, a podcast celebrating the world of movies, TV shows, games, and all things geek-centric and all things zombie. Today, I'm joined by my two undead co-hosts. First up, he's the jaw-unhinging, jagged-toothed Justin, the jugular-lacerating Lawrence.
I'm not a jugular kind of guy.
You wouldn't go for the jugular?
First.
Where do you go? What is your...
I don't know. I
ankle biter. He seems like an ankle biter.
Ankle biter.
He's I'm pretty tall too, right? Like I'd probably go for the head first, like the brain.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Just go right for it because I'm towering, you know? And
yeah.
I think that's probably my best. Jugular feels awkward. You gotta like get in there and like, you know. And
it depends on how long the neck. So if you're going for a longer necked person, maybe.
Sure, maybe like a giraffe, maybe, but like I don't know.
You do love munching on giraffes. You were telling me the other day.
Hey, I'm not a giraffe eater. Okay, you know, I eat like a giraffe, but
there you go.
I don't eat giraffes. That's what. Let's not confuse the conversation.
Okay, all right. A good you'll eat a few humans, but a giraffe, that is off the table there. Listen, he's stumbling out of the smoke behind him. He's the dubious, destructive, devouring demon Darcy, the hunched back, horrifically hungry Hudson. You're always hungry.
Demon now? I'm that but of a zombie. I'm a demon.
You're just the
evolved.
Worst.
Essentially.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what
I'll
you
take
are.
it.
He doesn't know what you are. You're a hunchback. You're a demon. You're a zombie.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Come on. But you are when you eat, boy, you can eat, brother. You know what I mean?
Yes, I like
he
to
does
eat
devour.
Food, okay, and I eat fast. I grew up with three brothers. If I wanted seconds in this house, I had to finish first. So
if you didn't eat fast, you didn't eat
if you want
all.
seconds,
that's the Ross.
You gotta eat fast.
That's the Ross mentality. Yeah,
That's it. Yeah. Love it, guys. How's it going? We are back with Marvel Animation. It feels like it's been not that long since Eyes of Wakanda, and we're already diving back into the Marvel animated world. This time into the TVMA side of things for the first time ever. We saw a preview of Marvel Zombies all the way back at D23, and now the time has come. We're finally here with Marvel Zombies as a series. I wanted to, before we get into talking about this show and these 4 episodes and our thoughts on them, I wanted to ask either of you, do either of you have any familiarity with the Marvel Zombies comic book run?
Why are you asking that as a question? Of course I do. I've read all of them. They're incredible.
He was asking the general audience, like both of us. So allow me to respond first then here. I haven't read this Marvel Zombie series. Okay, now Darcy, you can go and push your glasses forward.
Yes,
push your glasses forward first, though, bro.
Okay, sorry. I'm not even saying I'm actually though. I'm just saying yes. I read the comics. This one is kind of an easy give for me, or answer for me because it's such a pivotal storyline in the Marvel universe, especially because it's like one of the first times they really took one of these what if storylines and made it into its own fleshed out series that kept popping back up in various iterations. So yeah, I love it. The chance to see these zombies eating, like super zombies eating people and other superheroes, always fun.
Well, as a follow-up question, and not to deviate and hunchback host over here, but Darcy, when you're thinking about that comic book series and when you're thinking about this series, how much of it do you feel deviates from that while also kind of paying respect to that storyline?
Well, I say the only way it's really similar to that original comic storyline is the fact that the Avengers are some of the first heroes to fall. Mm-hmm. And that's where this story kind of picks up. We saw that in the What If episode where there are very few of the Avengers left. And it's really the guys who are the up and comers or the street level heroes who are left to fight off this disease. So that's about where the similarities stop, though, because again, the comics basically we're end up more focused on the zombies once they regain some form of sentience at one point in the storyline. So it was a very interesting flip around where they were the enemies at first, and then you're starting to root for these zombies as they're trying to figure out how they can conquer the galaxy, essentially. So
Right.
yeah,
Cool.
it's a fun storyline, definitely worth checking out. But again, it's not required reading to enjoy this series, because this series takes it in its own direction, which is so much fun.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that, Darcy, you and I have always discussed, and Justin, I'm sure we've had conversations like this before as well, but like especially for yourself, Darcy, who has read so many of the comic books, the that's the beautiful part about the MCU is how they're able to pull from the source material but adapt it in a way that still keeps it holistically its own story. And and I think we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the story of this series in spoiler-free detail, of course. But let's get to the synopsis of this show. After the Avengers are overtaken by a zombie plague, a desperate group of survivors discover the key to bringing an end to the superpowered undead, racing across a dystopian landscape and risking life and limb to save their world. From showrunner Brian Andrews and story by Brian Andrews and Zeb Wells comes Marvel Zombies, starring Awkwafina, David Harbour, Simu Liu, Elizabeth Olsen, Randall Park, Florence Pugh, Paul Rudd, Riot Russell, Haley Steinfeld, Tessa Thompson, Dominique Thorne, Iman Vellani, and Todd Williams. The series is produced by Kevin Feige, Louis D'Esposito, Brad Winderbaum, Dana Vasquez Eberhardt, Zeb Wells, Brian Andrews, Danielle Costa, and Carrie Wassenaar. All 4 episodes will debut on Disney Plus on September 24th, 2025. So this series is as I mentioned earlier, it's the first Marvel series to receive the TVMA rating, and that certainly carries through the look and feel of this show. The animation very much is the same of what we've been used to from 3 seasons of What If, and it's very much in that same style. But there is a lot more blood, a lot more gore. They definitely embrace that TVMA. I wanted to throw it to both of you. Let's talk about it. What did you think of the violence and the mature aspect of this series?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it goes hard with that MA rating. Marvel isn't holding back. The show Marvel Zombies really does lean into the zombie genre with full brutality, embracing the blood, the gore that comes with it. And I think there's some incredibly cool and iconic sequences, some teased in the trailers featuring Blade Knight and Spider-Man, which were just standout moments for me. But there's plenty of surprises that are left untouched. And I'm just glad Marvel didn't feel the need to tone things down. Instead, they led with the violence. They're really showing the brutality that exists in this universe, and they're embracing that genre. So, yeah, kudos to them for just being able to just say, okay, we're going that hard with this.
Yeah, I mean, again, the MA I think is necessary when telling a full Marvel Zombies storyline, because even the comics are a mature rated storyline, or at least like a 14A type thing, where they are not just your average Marvel run of the mill comics. So again, going this dark route I think really works, especially because it lands, like you said, some of those classic zombie movie moments are these big over the top kills, and now we're getting superheroes doing these over the top kills. It was meant to happen, and I love the way it looks.
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember back when, this is going to be spoilers for What If season 1, but like, just watch What If already if you haven't. But I think I remember we got to episode 3 of What If before the zombies episode, and the Hulk literally explodes, and I was like, this is some of the most violent in terms of Marvel animation that we've gotten up until that point. Then we get to episode 5 with the zombies episode, and this is a direct continuation of that episode. And like that episode, yeah, this series, it does not like even like, it doesn't hold back even a little bit. We're getting heads ripped off, we're getting whole bodies sliced in half, we're getting characters disintegrated. And yeah, they knew what they had to do, like you said, Justin. They were confident in what they had to do with upping the gore, upping the blood in this one. And so if that is what you're going into this for some awesome zombie blood gore and just craziness, you will not be disappointed.
Yeah, I remember that episode from What If, not having that level of blood and gore, but having that level of horror genre.
Mm-hmm.
Shadows, things lurking in the shadows, and things popping up, and the jump scares and stuff like that. Like, it had a lot of those elements, which just helped that episode to feel inherently different from the rest. But like we've been saying, it's this series that really goes further with not just giving you those horror elements, but they're giving you the zombie elements as well. And I think fans are going to be thrilled with this series just for that reason alone.
Yeah, there's I think there's a lot of really great just sort of ways that they incorporate some of the different angles that you'd expect from zombie movies. There's some moments where we're seeing hundreds, sometimes thousands of zombies on screen at once. I think the scale of this
Giant
series,
zombies.
it's really cool. We're getting giant zombies, we're getting miniature, shrunk down
Bug
zombies.
zombies.
And we're getting those classic horror shots as well. There's a great shot, it's in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler, but there's a great shot of just zombies throwing themselves off the rooftop in San Francisco in the city. And it just really brought me back to like World War Z sort of vibes, right? And even like Dawn of the Dead and your
28 days
28
later.
days later. And
Dude,
and it's,
all of it.
it's so great to see them be able to pull off some of this stuff. And in terms of the action and the fight sequences, it's Marvel animation. It's What If. We've given its praises before with this, but one of the best things about animation is the fact that you can get those camera angles, you can get those camera movements that just wouldn't really be as possible in live action. So it was great to see.
Well, to your point, and not to challenge what you're saying, I agree with you. I think animation lends itself for those things to be probably less expensive than live action, even though it is probably a bunch of CGI that is doing it, like that iconic scene from World War Z or any of the other iconic moments that this show feels like it is very intentionally referencing, because there is such a plentiful body of work that is zombie based. You can't help but feel like some of their inspiration and source material when they were storyboarding came from other movies, and I love that because it just goes to show how they want to not only tell their own story but live in that genre and embrace some of those elements. So I feel like at the end of the day, to put the camera angle in specific spots and stuff like that is almost an intentional way to like call to those moments that we might remember from other movies, like that scene that you mentioned where there's just bodies falling. I'm pretty sure it was either World War Z or 28 days later, 28 weeks later, I can't remember. One of those movies had something very similar, and I remember just clocking it right away when I saw it. I was like, oh, this feels like it's from this movie. So I think that's the other fun part. It's like these little Easter eggs as you're watching that you're gonna be like, hey, this reminds me of this movie, which is kind of cool, right? So I liked that aspect of them playing in the sandbox of the zombie genre to help tell their story.
Yeah, and I think it's again, it's one of those things that it's like, clearly this is made by zombie lovers, Marvel lovers, zombie lovers, just geeks in general. Now, let's talk about the characters of this show. I think one of the coolest aspects of this series is that it gives us the opportunity to really, hang out with the B-side characters or some of the newer characters from the MCU. I did read a little bit of the comic books, and obviously this is falling in line with that in focusing on those additional heroes. But we're getting some familiar faces that maybe are a little bit newer to the MCU, or characters that we didn't expect to maybe see for a while. That's one of the big gripes for a lot of people with these characters. And granted, we're seeing them in a different universe, but getting to see characters like Kate Bishop or Shang-Chi that we're all like, when will we ever get to see them again, is great. And we're getting them here voiced for the most part by their live action actors. I wanted to throw it to you two. Are there any characters that you want to shout out that you particularly enjoyed?
Well, yeah, I like the first character I want to shout out is Kamala Khan. I think she is the perfect heart for this story. Horror and zombie tales have always thrived when strong, relatable women are at the center. And I think of Ripley in Alien, and I know that that's a horror genre, but if we're thinking more along the lines of zombie-esque, I think of someone like Ellie in The Last of Us,
Sure. Yeah.
which just feels very, like it's obviously still Kamala Khan, so there's that personality, but it feels akin to that, right? You know, having a strong female at the center of this story, who's kind of doesn't trust herself, but is also wants to help everyone and save her friends. And I think, you know, Kamala carries that tradition beautifully, even in you know, this heightened fictional world. I feel like she's the most grounded and infectious part of this show. And she's, yeah, I there was a pun that could have probably been put in there,
There's
and I
been a
think it's both.
few. There's been a
Yeah,
few.
I think
Darcy
it's
said fleshed out earlier as well. And I
yeah,
was like,
I think both her energy and her personality are extremely relatable, and that is who Kamala Khan is, and more importantly, that's who Iman Vellani is. And to hear her voice and to see her at the center of this story, I really appreciated that. I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and kind of making her the one that's kind of helping to bring things together, if you will.
Yeah, no, I really loved her too. I think the fact that, again, her fact that she's got that youthful exuberance to her, you can understand like why she's making those references in those moments, like, you know, laughing off the tension with humor and all that stuff. And the fact that, again, she is such a bond driven character, seeing her in these times where bonds are few and far between, and you could lose anyone at any moment. It's, again, those moments hit a lot harder because see them, you see her connection to the people around her in this world, and it's so good. But if we're talking about favorite characters, I gotta go Blade Knight, just because he's awesome. But yeah.
I mean, I do want to talk about Blade Knight. Just really quickly, though, I did want to just mention with Kamala, it's interesting because I think one of my favorite elements, because you brought up the bonds that she has with all of her friends, is the fact that now we're seeing the biggest MCU fan in universe having to defend her friends from her heroes. And I think that's so compelling. It's such a compelling set of imagery, so many sequences. There are moments where we're literally seeing the people that she admired for years wanting to be a hero now up against her and harming the people she loves. And it's so cool. It's such a wonderful exploration of the character and such a cool choice to make, to have her be kind of at the center of this. And I also shout out to the upgrade in her powers, because I think a lot of people were a little not the hottest on how they sort of worked with her powers in the live action show. I think we all really enjoyed it, but here we're getting to see her, like, she knows how to use. She's plowing zombies at one point, like Mr. Plow.
I think she was forced to learn how to use them properly.
Yeah,
right.
And
like also,
yeah,
she was using her powers well in the Marvels. So, you know, like, I feel like we've gotten past that hump of, you know, training wheels, right? She's in it now, and to the point of what you're saying, Darcy, you know, zombies chasing you would probably force you to get comfortable with your powers pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
So,
but let's talk about Blade Knight, right? Voiced by Todd Williams.
wild,
coolest
absolutely
character.
wild. I love the spiritual guide and the source of wisdom he provides. He is embracing that Khonshu Moon Knight mentality, but I feel like Blade, when we actually get him in this series, will probably be more aligned to this, where he has a sense of understanding about, you know, this, you know, mystical world already.
yeah.
Like, there's not going to be a origin story that's like a hump that he, or sorry, something that he has to learn and discover. I think he's going to have such a great sense of knowledge, and you know, to even get a little taste of this character, it was absolute powerhouse. And the way they utilized him in the action scenes was incredible. And it sucks that it's not Mahershala Ali voicing him, but at the same time, a massive shout out to Todd Williams. It's Todd Williams, right?
Yeah.
Dude, like, his performance was eerily spot on. Like, at times I was like, this has got to be Mahershala, and it was not. And I just think that to at least have Todd Williams come in, do this voice as Mahershala Ali. For all those haters out there that say, like, Marvel's going to cancel this movie, I feel like this is a little bit of a solidification that, you know, they ain't going to cancel this movie. They are committed to doing Blade's story and having Mahershala in that role. So, you know, again, as much as it's like a bit of a bittersweet sort of moment to have Blade this sort of hybrid Blade Knight in this series, without having rehearsal. It's really cool, and I'm excited to see if inevitably we ever get Blade and Moon Knight in the same screen. Just like, it doesn't need to be Blade Knight, but I just want to see the two of those characters, like Oscar Isaac and Mahershala Ali, together. I mean, magic, chef's kiss.
The performance reminds me a lot of Mick Wingert as Tony Stark in What If, and how much we freaked out over Mick Wingert and how phenomenal he was at doing a Robert Downey voice. And I, when I spoke to Brian Andrews and Brad Winderbaum in an interview that will be dropping soon, Brian actually mentioned that he and Brad couldn't remember who came up with the idea to merge Blade and Moon Knight. But the big part of why they went that direction of the character is just because they weren't sure during development of this show where the Blade movie would be in its development, in its production. So they did mention it. They did talk about it. So for all the haters out there, like, clearly that had some sort of impact on them for them to just say, fuck it, we're going to make a whole new character. And I'm so happy that they did. Because Blade Knight is responsible for some of the coolest action moments, but also some of the coolest shots. There's a shot that's also in the trailer where we see his, the titular blade in front of half of his face, and the reflection is half of it is Khonshu and the other half is his face. It's just he's a scene stealer. He's freaking rad. It was so dope. There are a ton of other characters. Before we keep talking here, I wanted to throw it back to you. Do you want to talk about Belova family? Who do you want to talk about?
Well, I want to talk about the Queen of the Dead.
Oh, yeah.
So to follow the thread of Wanda Maximoff as the Queen of the Dead through What If and into this series, I think that's just such a great, like, again, a little thread to keep everything tied together. And I don't know, she's terrifying. She's magnetic. I think she was the perfect foil to Kamala. And I think one character that just embodies, like, she's the Queen of Death, while Kamala just is a character who's embodying hope and resilience. And while she's, obviously Queen of Death is despair and destruction. I think anytime we get Wanda is a win. So and this iteration might be one of the most scariest in my opinion, more scary than Multiverse of Madness. But I do think that they are leaning into some of that a little bit more heavily in this series, and I'm all for it. Right? She's also very deceptive, and yeah, I really loved it. And I'm pretty sure it's Lizzie Olsen that's the voice.
It is.
Yeah. So again, it's just it might be just that little tiny confirmation that
she's
at
back.
Some point in time she's coming back.
She's coming back. I mean? So, come on, of course she's coming back.
Yeah, no, I mean, the cast that we get to follow, because they're all the characters that you don't spend enough time with in the main MCU, it just, they shine so much more in this. Like, again, getting more of Shang-Chi and Katie and Randall Park sharing scenes together. It's like these guys they're here to have a good time even when the world is going to shit. So it makes, again, the levity they mix with the horror in the show is all down to the characters they pair together, and it's such a fun time.
And we got Yelena and Alexei and Thunderbolts recently, but we get Melina back in this as well. They're the mom of the family. We get that family dynamic from Black Widow kind of in a new way. And David Harbour he's always boisterous, but he is especially boisterous in this show and in this series. So absolutely delight to have him back as well. There are so many characters that will show up that you will not expect, and so we're not going to spoil anyone else. But it's a freaking great time if you're a fan of all the wonderful characters in this series. Let's talk about the story a little bit. Again, we are going to keep things completely spoiler free, but I think this is something that, like, it's a continuous storyline arc, right? If you're used to What If and you're used to moving from new arc to new arc, this is a 4-episode arc. We get episodes 1 and 2 to kind of build up our team, and then episode 3 and 4 feel like that epic finale. And I wanted to throw it to you, Darcy, first. What did you think of this story and its pacing and sort of how we got through these 4 episodes?
I love the pacing. Again, as a fan of the original series, the comic book series, this felt like one volume of the series where you're starting off with the threat, you explore that threat and again get to that climax like you're talking about, and it also, while it's a nice bow on it, there also sets up what could come next potentially if we see more zombies. And this story does exactly that. Like you said, all the characters we see, the world building it does between these episodes, where in that first What If, we kind of just focused on, the Avengers and around them, New York and all that stuff, whereas through this series you kind of learn what happened to the world at large once this disease hit, and just the way they explore that through these different character pairings and where we go in the world is so cool. So yeah, I loved the story this time around.
Yeah, at just 4 episodes, this season works as a setup for more, in my opinion. It feels like I said chapter 1, but we'll go with volume 1 because that's what Darcy said. It's self-contained, but it's begging, like literally begging to be expanded. And part of me, and I'm gonna be Nate here for a second, wishes it was longer and there was more episodes. But maybe that's a sign of good pacing. Like we're saying, it leaves you hungry for more. There you go. I got it. I got you. But I think, the core themes explored between, Kamala and Wanda, like I was saying, the brutality, the resilience, the duality of hope versus despair, like they're absolutely compelling, and it makes for good zombie storytelling, especially when you center it around characters we know and love from the MCU. And I think that's the other part that I really liked, and which is why I asked you, Darcy, like, how much of this feels similar to the comic book series. And as you pointed out, it's one element, and outside of that it's all new. And that's what I appreciate. They adapted this for the MCU, which we were talking about before. Like, they're not necessarily bringing together the ragtag group that might have been in the original comic book series. They're doing what makes sense based on the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe that they have built, and I appreciate that. So yeah, if Marvel keeps pushing this darker corner of the MCU, there is a ton of potential to explore more. So, and I look forward to that.
Yeah, and it's it's interesting. We talked about with Eyes of Wakanda only being 4 episodes, that also very much felt like we really wanted more. And I've gone back and watched. I actually watched a couple of those episodes for a third time since we did our review, and I definitely agree a little more with my co-hosts in terms of their score overall. But at the same time, I think this series has a bit of a cheat code in its back pocket, which is that technically this is the episodes 2, 3, 4, and 5 of continuing off of what If did, but also because we know these characters so well, it really gives us a chance to kind of explore them further. And we know them all. We know them already, so we understand them to a greater degree than maybe we did with some of the characters that we were introduced to in something like Eyes of Wakanda. So I think when I was going through these 4 episodes, after episode 2 and a little bit further into episode 3, I understood what we were going for, but I didn't know if we were going to hit a satisfying conclusion. And oh my gosh, episode 4 is where I'm like, it was all worth it just for this episode. It is so epic. It gets to some of that end game level of feeling watching it. And again, I think it has so much to do with the fact that we know these characters, we know where they're coming from. But I also love that this story takes us on a bit of a road trip. We are getting a little bit of that Zombieland style road trip movie. We're getting elements, as we said earlier, of World War Z, Army of the Dead. There's classic gross out moments as well. And I think the story also explores some really interesting ideas on how this universe attempts to contain the outbreak, how it deals with, how gods might deal with a zombie outbreak. And it just leads to so many really cool, but also just really fun and satisfying moments throughout. And like you said, Justin, I do hunger for more with the way this story ends. I do hope that we do get more, and I think we will get more based off of talking to Brad and Brian and their enthusiasm for this. So let's get to our final thoughts and our overall score for these 4 episodes. We're going to be rating this series on a scale of 1 to 5 undead Avenger heads. And Darcy, we'll start with yourself.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I'm a fan of the comics and I love What If and I love Marvel animation as a whole. I think it's pretty obvious where I'm going to be going with my score for this one. Even though it's only 4 episodes, the fact that it brought back the feelings of reading that comic book series for the first time and
Hmm.
had that satisfying and that potentially sets up more. I don't know. Everything about the series worked for me, and I love the pairings that we got. Again, the cast of characters makes this dark time so bright, which is crazy to think about because we are watching our favorite heroes who are dead trying to kill our favorite living heroes, and then sometimes we see them switch sides, and it's a wild experience the entire way through. 5 out of 5. What was it? Zombified Avenger heads?
Undead Avenger heads.
Undead Avenger heads. 5 out of 5 undead Avenger heads, easily.
That sounds like what we'd be called too. You know what I mean? Like if we were zombies, we'd be the undead Avenger heads. That'd be our biker gang. Justin, what about yourself?
Yeah, Marvel Zombies, it delivers on its promise. Unapologetically violent, surprisingly heartfelt, and it's a bold and bloody entry in Marvel Animation's catalog. And I think, you have Kamala Khan, she's just a breakout centerpiece. Wanda is terrifying. Blade Knight is absolutely cool, and this world just feels primed for expansion. Like it's ready to be expanded on. A huge shout out to the animation team and Marvel Studios
Mm-hmm.
for leaning into this genre wholeheartedly, like putting both feet in, not scaling back, not trying to do things different, making it, incredibly unique for the MCU while also embracing the genre and having fun with it. Like if this is the beginning, I'm excited to see what comes next. So I'm going to be giving this a 4.5 out of 5 zombified Avengers head.
That's
Undead
close
Avenger
enough.
heads.
That's all good.
Yeah. Undead. Zombified undead
Zombified
Avenger
undead
heads.
Avenger heads.
It feels like
Honest.
those two words are like the exact same. Zombified and undead is like,
Zombified isn't supposed to be there. I said that by accident.
oh, undead. I see. Okay. That was pretty close. All
Pretty
right.
close.
Well,
That's all good.
Nate, how about you? What's your final thoughts and score on this lovely,
I'd love to
lovely,
share it,
delicious?
Justin.
Yes, please.
Thank
Feel
you.
free.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a this is a short but sweet radical exploration into the Marvel Zombies world. And it's just filled, as we're saying, there's so many fan service moments that feel ridiculous but earned at the same time, and they maintain that dark humor but also like super cool, but also like you're sad but you're stoked at the same time. You're gonna get to see characters that you'd never expect to see in ways you'd never expect to see them. There's so many awesome action moments. I was just smiling and giggling and enjoying my time throughout the entire way. I do want more. I have a hard time believing that they won't do more. And again, as I mentioned earlier, Brad and Brian's enthusiasm when I spoke to them, it was so palpable about everything. They were just geeking out about everything with to do with this show and with elements of What If and expanding these stories even more. And hopefully, with a new season, I would love to see maybe an 8-episode run of this show, or even a 6-episode run. I think would be really cool, or another volume, if you will. But I had a ton of fun with this show. It's coming out at the perfect time. We're getting into that spooky season. So I'm right there with you, Justin. I'm giving Marvel Zombies a brain-rottingly solid 4.5 out of 5 undead Avenger
It's not really
heads.
solid, but
I mean, it's 4.5. You see, so if it was 5,
You said undead. It's like a rotting head.
So
man. That's
it's
not
rotting.
solid at all.
Half of it's
Yeah.
4.5 of it's rotting away. That's it for our spoiler-free review for Marvel Zombies. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you want to share your thoughts on this series or any of the movies or series we cover, well, let me just dig Justin up out of the ground so he can let you know how you can sink your teeth into our socials.
Well, you can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or you can hit us up on Twitter at geekcentricyt or on Instagram and TikTok at We Are Geekcentric.
Keep in mind, we have a ton of other great episodes covering the latest in movies and TV shows, including our recent recap of the Toronto International Film Festival, where we share our thoughts on our first ever experience at TIFF. We share some of our favorite moments, movies, and just experiences throughout the 14 days that was the 50th TIFF. TIFTY. That episode is out now for your listening pleasure, as well as all of our recent spoiler-free reviews for the latest series and movies, like our reviews for Only Murders in the Building Season 5, Nirvana the Band, the show, the movie, Peacemaker Season 2, Freakier Friday, FX's Alien Earth, and Marvel Animation's Eyes of Wakanda. Plus, we have some great interviews to check out, like our most recent interview with two of the cast members from LEGO Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy Pieces of the Past. We spoke with Gaten Matarazzo and Tony Revolori about returning to the incredible, fun, animated series, and they share what it's like to be a Jedi in Star Wars, some of their favorite Star Wars quotes, and their hopes to one day play their characters in live action. Also, if you're excited for Marvel Zombies and want to hear more from showrunner Brian Andrews and executive producer and head of Marvel Animation Brad Winderbaum, Zombie Justin just bit me and told me that interview is actually out now. I kept saying it was coming soon, but it is available now for you to listen to. We caught up with them to ask some questions about this very series, as well as getting to learn about some what-if storylines that never came to be yet. Maybe? I don't know. I'm going to leave the tease there, but you can catch that interview as well as all of our interviews either here on your podcast service of choice or over on YouTube at youtube.com/geekcentric. As we wind down the hot geek summer, it's not over yet, according to Darcy.
Actually, as of posting, the fall has begun.
Whoa, we've made it, everyone. It is time for the cozy geek fall, but also maybe like the spooky geek Halloween times is what we'll move into. We have a lot of coverage coming up for some excellent series and different movies. We've got coverage for Gen V Season 2. Eventually, we'll be talking about Stranger Things Season 5, probably. Movies like Tron Ares, Zootopia 2. There is so much to look forward to as we round out the rest of this year. Plus, a ton of reviews from a bunch of movies we just saw at TIFF. So stay tuned. Be sure to subscribe so you can follow in all that geek-centric goodness. Justin, Darcy, thank you so much for joining me for this bloody and gory and undead spoiler-free review. And as we say, love ya.
Laters.
Peace.
Brains.